Are you looking for a company that checks all the boxes? Waldorf Essentials provides homeschool curriculum written by homeschoolers for homeschoolers. We provide many options from digital to hard copies and individual blocks. Visit waldorfessentials.com.
Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm super excited. I have my good friend Andrea here from That Calm Mom. Andrea, I love you to pieces, and I'm so glad that we've just finished recording this great video for like helping parents with screen time. But I really wanted to have you on our podcast so that you can talk about the space of first your journey and the space of like how to deal with your anger, because there's so many mamas that are like, why am I so mad all the time? So
yeah. Well, thank
please.
you. Thank you for having me. And Melisa has been such a great mentor for years. I learned so much from her. And I actually started That Calm Mom with the intention of sharing my homeschooling journey, but then it started to kind of transition into sharing my struggle with anger and rage and screaming and motherhood, because I think it's something that so many moms are ashamed of, but so many moms do struggle with. And
totally agree. And I think so many moms don't want to talk about it because they feel
icky.
And I have to say, I was thinking about this too. I remember when I got my like wake up call as a mom that was a yeller, because I'm Italian, so we yell anyway. But I remember my kids I was still married to my ex-husband, so my kids were probably like 7, 5, and 3. And I can remember my mom came to visit. We lived in Idaho at the time. She lived in Utah. She came for a visit, and she came in while my ex-husband and I were having a fight. And I was like losing my mind about something. And I remember her saying to me, I don't ever want to hear you yell at my grandchildren like that again. And I remember thinking,
yeah,
like I was like, I was almost 30 at the time. I probably was 30 at the time. And I remember thinking, oh, I was just corrected by my mom about yelling. And somebody else from the outside saw it.
Yeah.
And it was was this pivotal moment. Like, I don't know where it would be if she hadn't called me out.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that space. So what do you think your pivotal moment was for like deciding that you needed to do something?
Well, there was one day, my husband's a commercial airline pilot. So he was traveling. I was with the kids for multiple days in a row and snappy all the time anyways. But there was one night where I had been with them all day and trying to hold it in because I didn't have any boundaries. This is what I learned after. I didn't have boundaries. I wasn't communicating well. They were running the show. The kids were running the show.
Right.
And I just lost it. They wouldn't go to bed. They kept asking me for water and blah, blah, all the things, snacks. Yeah. And I was like, and I just told them all to shut the hell up. And I slammed the bedroom door and I broke the frame of the door. And I mean, when I'm talking about screaming like that beast, like a serial killer scream, like, and just rage filled. And it was scary. And I sat down on the couch.
It built up and built up and built up.
Built up. Just, that was it. It was my tipping point. My daughter came out and she's like, do you even love us? And I felt just disgusted with myself. I never wanted her to ever think I didn't love her, because really it had nothing to do with my kids. It had to do with the fact that I was not a leader. I was not showing up as a leader, and I was allowing all of these things to happen. And so I started researching anger management skills and simplifying my home, and little by little things started to get better. And then when I started posting about it on social media, I saw how many people were struggling with it. So I became certified as an anger management specialist. And that's it. Thousands of people have, purchased my Control Your Anger course and gone through it and have learned how to control their anger. And I got to say, like, I always say this to people, I am not a naturally calm individual. I know that's one story that I shared with you, but my life was always chaos and drama. I was arrested for DUI when I was younger. It was just always, volatile. I was abrasive, very abrasive personality. And so the fact that I was able to learn these skills, apply them,
that's huge,
and change, anybody can. Like, I am not a naturally calm individual. So I really do believe in the power of learning skills and having that support to help you change, because it's changed my life,
and it's huge. And I often think about the last time I talked to you, before you went away and became an anger management coach. I often think about our last like exchange. I think it was like voice chat on Instagram. And I remember thinking, you've got so much. I think you were were you like a fitness instructor, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I remember thinking, oh, I hope she can pull it together because I know she really wants to be a mom so bad. And you really love it so much. And you were like really frustrated. And I, we would talk about things and it was like, it was not totally sinking in because you had to get to that place of, oh, wait, I had to work on me because it's not just working on my kids. It's not just my rhythm. It's not just, meal times. It's like the whole picture.
Yeah.
The whole thing. And then I remember when you came out with, yes, no, I don't know. Who wants to be who wants to be the crazy person, right?
It's so awful.
It does. You don't feel good about yourself. I think about all these people that I see spouting off constantly. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you do not like yourself. And that's actually something I've trained my kids. Like when you see somebody acting like that, they do not like themselves. They do not feel good when they're done. That's like some sort of anger that's coming out from them. And so it's like figuring out where that dysregulation is coming from.
Yeah.
And I really find that that's like where inner work comes in, right? Like we get to deal with this. We get to figure it out as an adult. We do not have to be beholden to somebody else's rules. We actually get to figure it out.
Yeah.
And that is so empowering.
Yeah.
It's so empowering to me to be able to say, you know what? I get to do this. Nobody's telling me I can't fix myself.
Yeah, you can fix yourself. And the thing that changed everything for me was realizing what it was. The reason why I was screaming like that, the reason why I was behaving that way was all driven by fear. It's all fear. It's this fear of not getting time alone after the kids go to bed, fear of them not listening and hurting themselves, fear and anxiety. It's always trying to control the situation. It's always some type of fear of me just feeling my nervous system being shot and overstimulated and constantly being afraid of something. And then when I was able to understand that's when I could really start to apply all the things that I now teach in the course. Yeah.
No, and I think that's so important because, I was thinking you said you had your twins when your daughter was like 2.5, right?
Yeah.
So you had all these little kids at home. I remember when I had 3 kids under 7, I like 3 kids under 5. I remember thinking it's so many moms are in that spot. Like you want to have this family, you want this space. And those of you that are, working with Waldorf education, you want this beautiful lifetime, like this beautiful space, right? But then we forget that we have to sort of deal with our dysregulation, deal with our anger, because otherwise we can't have that beautiful space.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to have times when we still lose it. I definitely have times when I still lose it. Ask my kids. But on the whole, like you're present, you're here, you're in your body. You know what makes you tick. You know what sets you off. You get to make different choices. And that's so important for that trauma cycle with your kids.
Yeah. And that's, I think, what a lot of what I learned from you too is like, I would always look at those on Pinterest, all the beautiful Waldorf playrooms and things like that, thinking like, well, the rainbow, the stacking rainbow.
Right. Just get the themes.
And the watercolors. And that is great and beautiful and all, but you can have all of that stuff, but not be embodying, Rudolf Steiner's teachings and Waldorf and stuff. And that's what I was doing. I'm like, have all these beautiful things, but I'm like, shut up.
Right.
I'm like, and that's not beauty. So it takes more than just the intellectual learning how to put the room together or whatever. It's like, it is a deep spiritual practice and
it is
just reworking, reparenting yourself. Yeah.
Totally agree. And I think too, there's moms. So there's definitely those of us who are like emote it. And then there's the moms that hold it in, that think that they're being such great, positive parents, but they are dying inside because they just want to punch somebody, right? So they're putting on a front. And here's the thing, your kids know when it's a front. Your kids know when you're not dealing with something. They will call you out and then push every button because they know that you're struggling with something. And so I think you really have to, even if you're that mom that's like, oh, well, I never yell and I'm really sweet. I think you have to remember, it's not about being sweet. It's about understanding boundaries. It's about understanding firmness. It's about knowing yourself
Yeah.
And then showing up authentically, because, you're going to be different than the next Waldorf mom. And that's okay. Like, there is no like, oh, you have to be this perfect little model.
No.
I remember one time years ago, somebody messaged me and said, we're doing a one-on-one coaching call. And the first thing she said was, I don't think I can be a Waldorf mom because my kids are too crazy. And I was like, oh, honey, let's fix you. And then your kids won't be crazy.
Yeah.
Because kids act the same every freaking day. We're the ones that show up differently. Like, they are constantly bouncing off of what we're sending out. So if we're sending out crazy, guess what? They're going to send out crazy.
Exactly.
We send out calm, they're going to show up calm.
Yeah. It's so true.
It just works out that way.
I mean, I didn't think that for a while, but it's so true. It's so true. You have to take radical responsibility for yourself and for your behaviors and actions.
Totally.
And it's hard sometimes to do that because
it's totally hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't ever feel good.
No,
it doesn't feel good to be like, oh man, I really effed that up. Like I should like be more careful. It's just part of that journey though. And I think, I'm definitely not the same parent I was 27 years ago. I've definitely I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot. And I think that's that space of, we're never completely done growing. We're never done in that arena. As long as you have children, you are always going to be growing and parenting them. And I think that's such a beautiful space to be in. So I'm not going to keep this podcast long. I was going to keep it pretty short because I know people, if time is important to them. So we are going to link Andrea's program. And here's what I love about your program. It's not very expensive at all. It's super cheap. And so you can get the pieces you need right now. And it's affordable to everybody. So we're going to link that in the show notes for this. You can follow Andrea over at That Calm Mom on Instagram. We're going to link that as well. And we just finished, like I said in the beginning, we just finished recording this beautiful training on how to reduce media in your home. Mm-hmm. So be watching for that. We'll link that in the show notes as well. Definitely come and check us out for that, because if you're struggling with media and just really trying to figure out, okay, Waldorf says no media. How do I do that? And that's actually a piece within Waldorf aside from the yelling. I find so many Waldorf moms just don't even want to talk about the media thing because they're like, either they do none and they're good with it, or they do some and they don't want to tell anybody. So we want to really help them get through this space, because I think it's a pretty important space. So as we really work to connect with our children. So anything else you want to share before we close up?
No, just one thing, just to say that if you are struggling with screaming at your children or lashing out, or even, being passive aggressive or being sarcastic or always rolling your eyes or just being irritable, that's still unresolved forms of anger. It doesn't just mean you're screaming or lashing out. Those are still kind of harmful communication patterns. So if those are things that you struggle with and you want to be able to really communicate, say what you mean and mean what you say. If you want to learn how to do that, then this course is totally for you.
It's totally for you.
You can totally fix it and change if you want to.
No, I agree. And I love that it's not rocket science. It's something you don't have to go out and buy a whole bunch of things to do. Guess what? You can do it now.
And I keep it real.
You can make a choice now. Yes. And you totally keep it real. Continue to be your authentic self. Just not so angry.
Yes. I love it.
Yeah. So angry. Thanks so much for joining me, my friend. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.
Absolutely.
It's anything like our experience. We've been with Miss Daniela for 2 years. There's some transition period in the beginning for sure to get the rhythm down of just something new. But beyond that, it's the greatest gift for myself and my kids compared to us trying to struggle through homeschooling on our own in the beginning. And I do try to attend the parent office hours, and I highly recommend trying to do that if you can, because it really has become a really beautiful part of, I think, all of our weeks when we meet there and get to ask all kinds of questions and talk about all kinds of subjects. But Wonderful. I love it.
Thank you so much for sharing. There's nothing like a returning family to help spread the love.